Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I'm going to tell you all about the books that I read in the second half of October. Obviously, October was Own Voices October, which means I did in fact read some Own Voices books. Not as many as I wanted to, but Own Voices books are very important, so I'm going to mention these ones first. The first book is Revenge of the Mooncake Vixen, which is about two Chinese twins who live with their grandmother, and they work as a delivery service for Chinese food. And basically, the plotline of this book is not as linear as I had hoped, I guess. So parts of it were better than others. I felt like it was just really, the plot was like not even in chronological order in any way, and the point of view changed a lot, so it was kind of crazy. But overall, I definitely enjoyed this book. I thought that you kind of have to be prepared for some sort of prosy things and some symbolism and whatnot. Like, this is a way better book to read as part of a class or something than on your own, but I definitely thought it was a lot of fun. Next, I read And the Mountains Echoed by Khaled Hosseini, and this book is also not the most linear of books, of storylines. Each chapter follows a completely different person, so it gets a little bit confusing, but the stories are all connected. It's just a little bit, it reminded me a lot of The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fist Fight in Heaven by Sherman Alexie, in that it's a bunch of short stories, but it's not, and they're all connected, like the people in them know each other, but I feel like that book had it tied together a lot more, and this one just left me really confused, and I'm kind of glad that I read most of this on audiobook, or I listened to most of this on audiobook, I mean. Otherwise, I would have been very confused, but this book takes place in Afghanistan, and I think that that is a very, very important country for people in the United States especially to read about, because the United States and Afghanistan have been kind of like, I don't know, at odds for a really, really long time. Then I read Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier, and this is a fairy tale retelling that follows a girl named Sorcha, or Sorcha, or Sorsha. I'm not really sure how her name is pronounced, but her 6 older brothers are turned into swans by her evil stepmother, and that just really sucks. What a bitch. So basically, Sorsha can actually save her brothers, but it involves A, not talking, B, not in any way conveying what the story is and why she can't talk, and C, most importantly, weaving a shirt for each of her brothers out of a starwort plant, and she has to cut the starwort plant herself or else it doesn't count, basically, and that's a really, really prickly plant that leaves her hands all swollen and stuff. So basically, though, eventually she has to choose between the man she falls in love with and saving her brothers, and it gets really complicated and really insane. I also like that this is a historical fantasy. It kind of involves like the olden day feud between like the Ireland, Scotland and stuff, and England. The only problem I really had with it was that nothing is really explained about why Sorsha can't talk and why she has to make the shirts out of the starwort plant and how that helps. So the analytical part of me just kind of went, that doesn't make sense. Why would that actually help her? Why would that turn her brothers back? So it was kind of weird, but I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really great. We really get to know all the characters, even though she has 6 brothers, and they are actually all different from each other, and we can see how, and it's really just interesting that it's got some great characters and a good story, and I really enjoyed this book. And I read Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton, and I read this while I was on tour because, I don't know, it was just a good book to read while you're like really stressed out and confused. So basically, this book follows a girl named Amani who lives in a fantasy world that is sort of a cross between the Middle East and the Wild West, which really fascinated me. That's what made me want to read the book the most, because, I mean, I'm Middle Eastern. I am really fascinated with stuff that's Middle Eastern seeming-ish. And I'm also really into like Wild West stuff, so I thought the setting was really, really awesome. And basically, Amani lives in this like small town called Dustwalk, and she really wants to get out of there because women there have no rights. everything they own either belongs to their husbands or their parental guardian, their male parental guardians. She realizes that she really has no place there and she wants to get out, so she joins forces with this foreign dude who kind of shows up, and people, and he's like wanted and everything, so she decides to help him, and in return he helps her and they get out of there and blah blah blah. And basically the problem I had with this book was that it basically, for 2/3 of the book, the magical elements of the book were sort of a background part, but then suddenly 2/3 in, they become the main part, and that just kind of threw me for a loop. I felt like the last third of the book was a completely different story. I was like, why did it change all of a sudden? I feel like I'm not even reading the same book anymore. But basically though, and we are also 2/3 of the book introduced to way more characters all of a sudden, when we really only had 2 main characters for the whole first 2/3 of the book. And so since we get introduced to that many characters all at once, it can be a little bit hard to juggle, but some of those characters are really awesome and really badass, and Amani herself is an incredibly badass female character, and she is just awesome. So overall, I really, really enjoyed this book, and I definitely recommend it. And finally, the last book that I completed during the month of October was The Rise of Endymion by Dan Simmons. I finally finished this. This is the 4th and final book in the Hyperion Cantos, and it was amazing. I can't really get too into this because it is a sequel, not only a sequel, but the 4th book in a 4-book series, but basically, I think that this was sort of my least favorite of the 4 books, but I did still really, really like it. It took about 300 pages to really get going, but once it did, it was amazing. And also, there was a love story in this that I definitely did not expect to care about at all from the 3rd book, but I really found myself super invested in the love story that goes on, and the ending was just like heartbreaking as fuck, and it was insane. But basically though, I'm going to do a whole series review of this very soon, so keep an eye out for that. Alrighty folks, those are the books that I read in the second half of October. I will leave a link to my part 1 of my wrap-up where I talk about the ones that I read in the first half of October down below if you want to go and check that out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye!